There are quiet corners of the world where no one rushes, where time moves like a river at dusk, gentle, slow, almost still. Maybe your heart has been longing for such a place, somewhere your worries don't have to follow, somewhere no one expects anything from you. Tonight, you've found it. This is a story you don't need to understand. Just feel a story not of drama or noise, but of stillness, and a God who never forgets the ones who sit quietly at the edge of things. So let your body soften, let your breath grow long, and listen for the whisper of God's love tucked inside the silence. Part 1. A light that stayed. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. There was a small town where the hills curled like gentle hands around the homes. A quiet place, the kind where the mailman knew your name and every porch had a rocking chair. Most days passed without much noise, just the wind, the church bells, and the slow turning of time. At the edge of this town stood a white cottage with green shutters and a stone chimney. It wasn't grand. The roof sagged a little. The garden had more weeds than roses. But every evening, as the sun slid down behind the hills, a warm yellow light would flicker to life in the front window. Always the same window, always the same soft glow. And people noticed. I wonder who lives there now. Folks would whisper at the post office. The light never goes out. But no one had seen anyone come or go. No cars, no deliveries, just the steady flame behind the glass. Inside that house, in a chair by the window, sat a woman named Evelyn. She had lived many lives already. Daughter, wife, mother, widow. Her hands were quiet now. Her knees were stiff. But her spirit was still tender, still listening. And every night, she lit that old oil lamp by hand, not for show, not for habit, but for someone who might be passing by in the dark. I don't want anyone to feel alone. She would whisper into the silence. Let them see the light and know they're not forgotten. Flame danced, soft and golden, against the pane. Sometimes, Evelyn would sit there for hours, not doing anything, just remembering. She remembered the feel of her husband's hands when they planted the dogwood tree in the front yard. She remembered the scent of her mother's apricot jam cooling on the sill. She remembered sitting in church with her children, their heads leaning sleepily against her shoulders. Now, those days had passed, but the lamp remained. So did the promise Evelyn had once made to God: if you let me stay, I'll keep the light burning. Take a deep breath. Rest here for a moment. Sometimes, when we grow older, we wonder if our small, quiet lives still mean something. If our prayers still matter. If our presence is still a blessing. But Evelyn's lamp glowed like a gentle reply. Yes, it matters. Yes, your quiet is seen. Yes, you are still a light. Bedtime takeaway. Even in silence, your life speaks love. God sees you. He never forgets. Part 2. The visitor who never knocked. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. The evenings came earlier now. The wind had turned cooler, and the trees began to let go of their leaves without protest. Evelyn liked autumn best. the world grew quieter with each falling leaf. And quiet was something she understood. She had grown accustomed to stillness. Years had passed since anyone lived in the rooms upstairs. The beds were neatly made. The closet still held a sweater or two. But the voices that once filled those rooms had long since drifted elsewhere into marriages, faraway cities, and, in her husband's case, into eternity. Evelyn didn't mind being alone. Not really. Not when she had her lamp. Each night, as darkness crept up the hills like a soft blanket, she would strike a match and set the flame to life. The oil lamp hissed faintly before settling into its golden glow. Then she would ease herself into the rocking chair by the window, hands folded loosely in her lap, and sit in gentle silence. That was the moment she waited for. The moment when the light met the dark and claimed a small, faithful space within it. Evelyn didn't know that down the road. Past the bend where the oak tree leaned, a young man named Thomas walked home every evening. He worked late at the bakery and took the long way back, not because it was faster, but because it passed by the cottage with the glowing window. He never told anyone, but he looked for that light each night. It gave him something he couldn't name. Maybe it was comfort. Maybe it was hope. Maybe just the gentle reminder that someone, somewhere, was still keeping watch. He never knocked, never introduced himself, but the light, it greeted him like an old friend. And in a way, Evelyn had been lighting that lamp for him all along. She didn't know his name, but God did. And perhaps that was enough. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders soften. You may not see the lives your kindness touches. You may never know who's walking by your light in the dark. But when you offer what you have quietly, faithfully, God uses it in ways beyond your knowing. Bedtime takeaway. Your faithfulness matters, even when no one sees. God carries your light to those who need it. Part 3. The letter with no return address. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Ecclesiastes 11:1. One chilly morning, as frost laced the edges of the glass, Evelyn heard the soft sound of mail slipping through the slot. It landed gently, like everything did in her house now. Slowly, quietly, she shuffled to the door, fingers curled slightly from time and work and memory, and picked up the handful of envelopes, mostly flyers, a church bulletin, a thank you from the local library for her yearly donation. But one letter stood out. No name, no return address, just her own written in unfamiliar handwriting, careful and slanted, as if someone had written it with trembling hands or cautious hope. She didn't open it right away. Instead, she carried it back to her chair by the window, set it beside the lamp, let it rest there, as she did so often with her questions and thoughts and half-formed prayers. After tea and a small slice of pear, she finally tore the envelope open with a quiet, expectant breath. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper. Dear Lightkeeper, I don't know your name. I don't know if you'll even read this. But I walk past your house almost every night, and I just wanted to say, thank you. That light in your window, it kept me going through some very dark months. I don't think you know what that meant, but I do. And God does too, whoever you are. Please know, You made a difference. You reminded me that hope is real and that someone, somewhere, was still waiting with the light on. Thank you for not giving up. I needed you more than you'll ever know. No signature, no clue. Just those simple words. You made a difference. Evelyn's hands grew still in her lap. She read it again and again, not to convince herself it was true, but to savor the mystery of how God answers long-forgotten prayers in the most ordinary ways. She hadn't done much, just lit a lamp, sat by the window, stayed. But that was enough. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes for a moment, if you like. Sometimes we wonder if what we do, especially the small, repetitive acts, have any weight in eternity. But heaven has its own scale. And sometimes, a single light in a window is enough to steady someone's soul. Bedtime takeaway. When you love in quiet ways, God multiplies it into miracles. Part 4. The evening God sat beside her. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. That night, after the letter, Evelyn lit the lamp a little slower. Her hands lingered over the matchbox. Her heart was warm and trembling. Something had shifted. Not outside. The hills were still quiet, the sky still pale with stars, but within her, there was a new kind of hush, not the silence of loneliness, but the silence of awe. She sank into her chair and watched the flame flicker gently behind the glass. The wind rattled the window, but the light didn't flinch. It held steady, just like always. And something inside Evelyn whispered, "You've been seen." She looked around the room, the books on the shelf, the needlepoint sampler on the wall, the teacup resting in its saucer like it, too, had settled in for the night. She wasn't sure when it happened, but somewhere between the creak of the chair and the soft rhythm of her breath, she realized she wasn't alone. It wasn't a sound, or a voice, or a sudden miracle. It was just presence, gentle, unmistakable, near. She didn't open her eyes, but she felt it, as if someone had settled beside her. Not to fix anything, not to explain the years, just to be with her. And that, somehow, was enough. For the first time in a long time, Evelyn let herself lean back into it. Not her chair, but the presence. She let herself rest, not just her body, but her soul. Because sometimes, even faith grows weary. Even hope needs a quiet place to sit down. Take a deep breath. Let the stillness wrap around you. The world tells us that God is only in the big things in the crowds, the noise, the bright declarations. But sometimes, He comes in the gentle hush of a lamplit room, in the soft crackle of the oil, in the quiet company of a soul who kept watch. Bedtime takeaway. God is not far. He sits beside you in the silence, just to be near. Part 5. The prayer with no words. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness, for we do not know what to pray for as we ought, but the Spirit Himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. Romans 8:26. The days grew shorter, as they always did in November. The afternoons folded in on themselves, and twilight came sooner each evening, like a curtain drawn a little earlier across the stage. Evelyn moved slower now. She noticed her knees didn't bend quite the same when she knelt to water the plants by the sill. Her memory softened around the edges. Names, dates, where she last set her glasses. But the lamp never forgot. It waited patiently each evening, wick trimmed and ready, glass polished by her careful hands. There was a kind of reverence to it now, not just habit, but offering. And one evening, she sat before it without lighting the flame, not because she had forgotten, but because she wanted to pray before the light began. Yet when she folded her hands, nothing came. No words, no petitions, no tidy phrases from old hymns or prayer books. Just silence, a long, holy silence. She felt her eyes well, though she wasn't quite sure why. Was it sadness? Gratitude? A strange aching she couldn't name? She didn't know. So she sat and let the ache be her prayer. She imagined it rising like incense, wordless but weighty, carried up by the Spirit who knew her heart better than she ever could. It wasn't eloquent, it wasn't brave. It was just real. A soul sitting before God, offering nothing but presence. And she remembered what someone once told her. Prayer isn't always what you say. Sometimes it's what you surrender. That night, when she finally lit the lamp, the flame seemed to shimmer with quiet understanding. Take a deep breath. Let the silence settle inside you. If your prayers feel hollow tonight, if your words feel lost or stuck inside your chest, God still hears you. Even when nothing is said, He listens with love. Bedtime takeaway. Your silence is not empty. God receives even the wordless prayers of your heart. Part 6, the day the light was late, even to your old age and gray hairs. I am He who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you. Isaiah 46:4. It was just a few minutes, but to Evelyn, it felt like an hour. That evening, her hands didn't move quite right. She dropped the matchbox twice. The oil spilled slightly as she tried to refill the lamp. And when she finally struck the match, the first few wouldn't catch. She sat down heavily, heart fluttering a little in her chest, breath shallower than usual. Outside, dusk had already taken the hills. The first stars blinked awake in the sky, and for the first time in many years, the window remained dark longer than it should. She wasn't frightened, not exactly, just aware of time, of limits, of how her body didn't always keep pace with her soul. But then the flame caught, a soft puff of light, stubborn and steady. She exhaled slowly, as if she'd been holding her breath all this time. And as the glow spread through the glass, Evelyn smiled faintly, whispering, "There you are." She didn't say it to the lamp. Not really. She said it to herself, because the truth was, she had wondered. Not about her faith, not about God's love, but about how long she'd be here, how long she could keep lighting the lamp. And that night, as she sat beside the gentle flame, she didn't ask for more years. She only asked for one thing. Let me finish well. Lord, let me stay steady. Let my light last as long as you will it to. She didn't need to be strong or famous or even remembered. She just wanted to be faithful, right to the end. Take a deep breath. Feel your body rest. Sometimes, growing older brings us face to face with our limitations. We slow. We spill things. We forget. But God's hands are steady where ours are not. And His strength is perfect in our weakness. Bedtime takeaway. You don't have to carry your light alone. God will hold the flame with you. Part 7, when it was enough. Just to sit. In returning and rest you shall be saved. In quietness and in trust shall be your strength. Isaiah 30:15. There came a time, though Evelyn couldn't name the day, when she stopped trying to do so much. She still watered the plants. She still folded the laundry, though the baskets grew lighter with each season. But she no longer felt the need to prove anything. Her days became softer. She let them unfold like pages in a well-loved book. No rush, no pressure. In the morning, she sat with tea and let the warmth soak into her hands. At noon, she listened to the wind brushing the side of the house, as if the day itself were breathing beside her. And at night, she lit the lamp, always the lamp. But something had changed in her heart. Before, she had sat by the window hoping to help someone, to guide, to comfort, to keep someone from feeling lost. But now, she simply sat, not to rescue the world, not even to wait for God, just to be with Him, no longer performing, no longer planning, just present. She wasn't reading her Bible aloud, though it lay gently open on her lap. She wasn't reciting prayers, though they moved like music in her heart. She was simply sitting in God's company like an old friend who doesn't need to fill the silence with words. Sometimes, she would close her eyes and whisper only one sentence. You're here, and I'm here. And that is enough. Take a deep breath. Let your soul settle into this stillness. We often think we need to be doing something for our time to matter, serving, striving, fixing, proving. But the heart of worship is often stillness. To sit before God, not to be useful, but just to be His. Bedtime takeaway. You don't need to do more to be loved. Your quiet presence with God is already enough. Part 8. A Sunday with the window open. Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. Genesis 28:16. It was a Sunday in early spring. The air still held a bite, but the sun had returned a little brighter, a little braver. Evelyn, wrapped in her cardigan, opened the front window for the first time in months. Not wide, just enough to let in the breeze and the sounds of the street, the soft crunch of footsteps, the call of a distant robin, a child's laughter somewhere down the lane. She didn't go to church anymore. Her knees and lungs had decided that season was past. But church still came to her. Sometimes in the stillness of Scripture, sometimes in the voice of a friend calling on the phone, and sometimes, like this morning, it came through an open window. As she sat in her chair with the lamp unlit beside her, she listened, not for sermons, not for hymns, but for the nearness of God in the everyday music of life. The creak of the porch swing, the rustle of the magnolia tree, the quiet hum of neighbors returning from their own Sunday gatherings. And as she listened, Evelyn whispered a small truth aloud, one she hadn't known she was carrying. This is enough, not because it was grand, not because she had accomplished anything, but because the presence she once sought in cathedrals had followed her home and sat beside her now. It had always been there, in the folding of towels, in the warmth of her tea, in the quiet of her evenings by the lamp. She hadn't missed God. She'd just learned to meet him in smaller spaces. Take a deep breath. Let the ordinary wrap around you, like a soft blanket. You don't have to search far or reach high. God often arrives through open windows, through quiet mornings, through the smallest doors of our ordinary days. Bedtime takeaway. God meets you in your quiet routines. You are never far from his presence. Part 9. The quiet that taught her to sing again. The Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you by his love. He will exult over you with loud singing. Zephaniah 3:17. There was a time when Evelyn used to sing. She'd hum while folding sheets, or sing softly while stirring the soup, simple songs, mostly hymns, passed down from her grandmother. Blessed assurance, come thou fount, songs with edges worn smooth by decades of faith. But somewhere along the years, her voice had grown quiet. Not out of sadness, just the natural stilling that comes when life grows quieter on its own. One morning, as she tidied the bookshelf near the window, she found an old hymnal tucked between a photo album and her late husband's Bible. Its pages were brittle, the spine nearly gone. But there it was, song after song, like letters from an old friend. She ran her fingers along the page. Great is thy faithfulness. And something stirred that afternoon while the lamp sat unlit beside her. Evelyn began to hum. At first, it was just breath. Then, the hum formed a note, a fragile sound, wavering and soft, like wind brushing over reeds. But she didn't stop. She didn't apologize for how her voice had changed. She let it come as it was gentle, low, full of memory. And in that moment, she felt something deep inside her begin to open. It wasn't just the return of a song. It was the return of joy. Not loud, not wild, but quiet joy. The kind that builds like a sunrise, filling the soul without demanding attention. Later, as she lit the lamp and sat in her chair, she let her voice rise again, this time with words. Strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. She sang it not for anyone passing by, not for memory, not even to feel young again. She sang it for God, and she felt, though she could not explain, how that God was singing with her. Take a deep breath. Let a quiet melody rise in your own heart. Even if your voice is soft, even if your song is more of a whisper than a tune, God hears, and sometimes the song he treasures most is the one we offer in the quietest room, with nothing but faith to carry the note. Bedtime takeaway. There is still a song in you, and God delights to hear it just as it is. Part 10. The night the power went out. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Psalm 27:1. It was just after 9 when the lights flickered. Once, twice, then out. The entire street fell into sudden darkness. No glow from porch lamps, no soft buzz of nearby televisions. Even the moon had tucked itself behind a thick veil of clouds. Evelyn sat in her chair by the window, holding her tea with both hands. The room around her grew still, so still that she could hear the wind tracing its fingers across the siding. She didn't panic, didn't rise too quickly, just waited, because she knew the lamp was ready. Reaching slowly, she found the small tin of matches in its usual place. Even in the dark, she didn't fumble. She knew this rhythm. Lean in. The wick caught, and the light bloomed in the quiet like a memory returning. Soft, golden, familiar. She smiled, not because the power was out, but because the light was not. She thought of the neighbors, of the boy who walked past her window each night, of the many people who, like her, might be sitting in the dark, and her heart whispered, "Let them see it." Not her, not the house, but the light. The one she'd tended for so long. The one that never asked to be loud, only steady. Outside, the wind shifted. Inside, the lamp held, and Evelyn leaned back, the glow settling over her like an old quilt. She didn't need to be in control. She didn't need all the answers. She just needed a small flame, a steady heart, and the God who sits beside both. Take a deep breath. Let it carry you to a place of calm. Even when the lights of the world go out, even when all you have is a single flicker of faith, God is there, and He is enough. Bedtime takeaway. When everything else fades, God's light in you remains steady and sure. Part 11. The cup left on the porch. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by this some have entertained angels without knowing it. Hebrews 13:2. One morning in early June, Evelyn stepped out onto her porch with her cane in one hand and a cup of warm cinnamon tea in the other. The sun had risen gently, no rush, no fire, just a golden softness spreading across the garden. She placed the cup down on the little table beside her rocking chair, then paused. Something nudged her. She looked at the second cup in her hand. She'd poured 2 out of habit, it seemed. But lately, she had begun doing that. More and more. A second cup, a second napkin, a second chair slightly turned. As if waiting, she smiled faintly, not mocking herself, but honoring the feeling. So she left the second cup on the porch railing, not for anyone in particular, not even expecting it would be taken, but just in case someone passed by who was weary, in case a neighbor paused at her gate, in case by some holy chance someone needed warmth without asking for it. She returned to her seat, the lamp now resting behind her, cold and clean in the window. It wasn't yet time for it. That would come later, as always. But now, her offering was not a light. It was presence, a silent welcome, a quiet space at the edge of the day. And as she sat, the breeze stirred. The birds sang low, and for just a moment, Evelyn felt a peace that was both simple and sacred. She didn't need to know who might come. She only needed to make room. Take a deep breath. Feel the openness in that gesture. Sometimes the most generous thing we can offer is an unseen place, a kindness unacknowledged, a cup left on the porch for someone who may never arrive. God fills the spaces we prepare in faith. Bedtime takeaway. You bless others when you make space, even if no one steps into it. Part 12. The window on the day of rain. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. Psalm 91:4. The rain began before dawn. Soft at first, like fingertips tapping on the roof, then fuller, steadier, like the sky was remembering how to weep. Evelyn did not mind. She had always liked the sound of rain. It reminded her of being held, of blankets tucked up to the chin, of God's nearness in seasons that didn't shine. She sat by the window, just as always, the lamp beside her unlit, waiting. But this time, she didn't strike a match. She simply watched. Watched the rain trace long, glistening paths down the glass. Watch the garden bow gently beneath the weight of water. Watch the world blur into a watercolor of greens and grays and soft, shimmering silver. And as she watched, her breathing slowed. Her thoughts grew quieter, and something sacred stirred within her. It was on rainy days, she thought, that God's love felt thickest. Not loud, not dramatic. Just, covering, like a shawl draped around the shoulders, like hands cupped gently over your own, like the roof overhead holding steady even as the storm says otherwise. She didn't speak a word. She didn't need to. This was one of those moments where simply being was its own kind of praise, where tears didn't need to fall to count, where silence itself became a song. She thought of the people walking under umbrellas, the cars hurrying past her lane, and the ones who had no dry place to return to. And she prayed the only words that came. Cover them, Lord, as you have covered me. Take a deep breath. Let it fall gently, like rain on the roof. Even in seasons when you feel soaked through by grief, by time, by memories you didn't ask to carry, God covers you. Not always by stopping the storm, but by sitting with you beneath it. Bedtime takeaway. When the world feels heavy, God becomes your shelter, gentle, quiet, near. Part 13. The day she didn't light it. Even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is bright as the day, for darkness is as light with you. Psalm 139:12. It had been a long day. One of those days when the body asks for more rest than usual, when even the arms feel too heavy and the quiet hours drift together like mist. Evelyn woke from her afternoon nap later than usual. The sky was already deepening, the soft blue turning to dusk, and her lamp sat waiting on the table. She looked at it, her faithful friend, the ritual of so many evenings, but she didn't reach for the matches. Not out of forgetfulness, not out of pain, but peace. For some reason she couldn't explain. The light already felt lit, not in the lamp, but within her. She leaned back into her chair, and instead of striking a flame, she let the dark come gently through the window. It wasn't frightening. It was soft, like a velvet curtain drawn slowly, lovingly, across a familiar stage. She whispered into the fading light, I think you're here already, Lord. And she closed her eyes. All around her, the world continued its quiet routine. The stars rising one by one, the wind humming its old lullaby through the trees. Somewhere, a child being tucked into bed. But Evelyn just sat there, breathing slowly, wrapped in the quiet warmth of a presence she didn't need to see, because faith had taught her something deeper than habits, that the truest light isn't always the one we can hold. Sometimes it's the one that holds us. Take a deep breath. Let it meet you gently in the hush. There will be days when you don't light the lamp, when the routine slips by, when your strength is small, but you are still seen, still carried, still lit from within by the one who never sleeps. Bedtime takeaway. Even when you do nothing at all, God's love still burns quietly for you. Part 14. The visitor who came in spring. And if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones, because he is my disciple, truly I tell you, he will never lose his reward. Matthew 10:42. The world was full of green again, the kind of green that seems to come all at once, bold and tender, stretching across branches and fields, like the earth itself remembered something it had almost forgotten. Evelyn had been sitting on the porch, a shawl across her shoulders, the lamp still unlit beside the window behind her. It was early yet. The sun still lingered. She wasn't expecting anyone. But then she heard footsteps, careful, uncertain, approaching the gate. She looked up and saw a young man standing there, hair a little too long, backpack slung across one shoulder. Nervous in that way, kind people sometimes are when they don't want to intrude. I hope this isn't strange, he said gently, his hand resting on the gatepost. Evelyn tilted her head with a soft smile. I used to walk past your window, he continued. For years, actually. Every night after work. I never spoke to you. But your light, your lamp, it always meant something to me. Evelyn's eyes warmed with knowing. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small, a folded card, well handled, edges softened by time. I wrote you once, he said. I never knew if you got it. She nodded slowly. Your letter's tucked in my Bible. He smiled then. That kind of smile that only comes when something unspoken is finally received. I'm moving away tomorrow, he said, voice catching slightly. New job, new place. But before I left, I just wanted to say, thank you. He stepped forward, uncertain, and she motioned toward the other rocking chair. He sat. For a while, they said nothing, just the birds in the hedges, the creak of wood beneath them, 2 generations breathing in the same quiet grace. And then Evelyn reached for the pitcher on the side table, poured a glass of water, and handed it to him. No sermon, no farewell, just refreshment, a gesture small enough to go unnoticed, yet deep enough to echo through heaven. Take a deep breath. Feel that sacred, simple moment settle around you. You may never know the lives you've touched, the strangers your light has guided, the hearts your presence has calmed. But every quiet kindness is remembered. Every unseen welcome finds its way to God. Bedtime takeaway. Even the smallest kindness offered in love is a seed God never forgets. Part 15. The light that kept burning. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 28:23. Years passed. The seasons continued their quiet turning, each one folding gently into the next spring into summer, summer into fall, like pages in a well-worn book. The white cottage aged softly, like Evelyn herself. Neighbors came and went. Children who once played in the street grew taller, moved into lives of their own. And still, each evening, the lamp in the window flickered to life. Some said it was automatic, now set on a timer perhaps, or wired into the house. No one quite knew for certain, but those who passed by after dusk, walking their dogs, returning from the store, or simply lingering on the sidewalk longer than needed, would often pause. They didn't speak, they didn't knock. They just looked and felt steadied, comforted, as if something old and sacred still watched over the street. Inside the house, Evelyn's chair remained by the window. So did her Bible, worn at the edges, and the old hymn book with its pages barely holding. One evening, when the sky was especially kind, a dusky lavender that held the day like a lullaby, Evelyn sat in her chair, the lamp lit beside her, and whispered, "I think I'm ready." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't sad. It was the soft release of a soul that had stayed faithful. She had kept her promise. And as the night folded gently around her, something unseen took her hand. The lamp stayed lit. Days later, when neighbors came to check, they found the house as they remembered. Quiet, tidy, full of presents. The oil lamp still burned in the window, its glow steady, not demanding attention, but offering peace. And in time, someone else moved in. A woman with gentle eyes. She didn't know the full story, only that something about the house felt watched over. And one night, without thinking, she placed a small lamp by the window. She didn't know why. She just did. And slowly, the light continued. Because when God lights a flame in one heart, it often carries beyond a single life. The warmth outlives the hands that lit it. And love, true, quiet, faithful love, never dies. Take a deep breath. Let this final piece wrap around you. You do not have to be famous or strong or remembered by many. You only have to be faithful to the light God placed in you. And when your part is done, He will carry the flame forward. Final bedtime takeaway. Your light matters, and the love you've given will shine far beyond your days.